Hi guys, today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do something a little bit more personal. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen with you in a moment, and we're going to look at my x-rays that I had taken about 4 or 5 years ago. I was about 22, 23 when these x-rays were taken. The reason I want to show you these is to follow up on points that we've been making continuously. If you've been watching all the videos throughout that we've been posting, you'll know that we talk about how there's lots of individual pieces that make up the full picture of back pain. So 90% of back pain is what we call multifactorial. It's got lots of little things that are contributing to it. You cannot just look at one x-ray, one examination and get the idea of the whole picture, because back pain just doesn't work like that. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to walk you through my x-rays, and we can see, well, you can see those, and I'll explain to you what they all mean. Okay, so there we go. So what we're looking at here, so there we go. So what we're looking at here, so this image here, this one is where you're looking straight at me and I'm looking straight at you. So this is what we call an A to P, so an anterior to posterior, front to back. And so if we just walk through the basic stuff first, so this is the pelvis through here. Those are my hips down there. These are the vertebrae. Those are my ribs up there. This little squiggly line through here and this one through here. These are my SI joints. You can see those. Now, I've got this orange cross here. So the orange cross is completely, the lines are completely straight. Okay, I've added that on afterwards using the computer. So the orange, this vertical line here first, this goes through the vertebrae, the middle of the vertebrae at the bottom there, and goes all the way up. Now you can see these little teardrops here. That's the bony bit that sticks out the back. And so when you touch your spine, the bony bits you feel, that's called the spinous process. That's this teardrop here. What we can see is it moves off to this side, which is the left-hand side. Now, what that means is actually that my spine has a bit of a curve over to the left there. So we say it's listing towards the left. It's not like a scoliosis, because that's, to call it a scoliosis, you technically have to be able to see the top and the bottom. So we can't see that. So according to this image, it's just a lean. So my spine actually leans over to the left slightly. This orange line here, the horizontal one, that is completely horizontal, and it touches the top of my pelvis there on the left, and you can see on the right there's a bit of a gap. So what that means is on the right hand side my pelvis has dropped down. Now if I ever lay on my front and you check the length of my legs, my right leg is always a little bit shorter. So it's likely that on the right side I do actually have a difference in leg length. So when I'm standing here without any shoes on, and it drops down, that's why you get that gap there. Okay, the hips, there's a little bit, probably arguably a little bit of degeneration in the hips, not dreadful, maybe a little bit of wear, nothing drastic if you like. The interesting bit, so we have 5 vertebrae in the low back. So we've got number 1 there, then that's number 2, then number 3, then number 4. Number 5 is in here. Now, this line, if you follow where I'm looking across there, this is S1, okay? This shape here almost kind of looks like a bow tie. That's S1. L5 sits on top of S1. And if you follow this line as we go around here, and it kind of draws this shape around there. So usually that bone there looks like these kind of ones, like this one up here. So it's just like a little bit sticks out the side. It's called a transverse process. But what's happened here is mine has gotten really big. And there's only a very, very small gap between the transverse process and S1. So it's likely that there might actually be some level of fusion or kind of formation of a joint here, which is part of what we call a transitional segment. So this is what this represents, where L5 is actually fusing to S1. That's called a transitional segment. So on this side, the right-hand side is kind of partial. When we go around here on the left and we follow the line round, we actually can't see any gap there. So we know that on the left side, that's fused. That's fused completely. The name for that is transitional segment. A transitional segment is actually what we call a normal variant. So it is a version of normal. So you can, that is not necessarily that big of a deal. I've had patients tell me that they've been told before that their pain is caused by a transitional segment. Maybe a stretch, but again, it's a normal variant. So it's a version of normal. When we look over on this side here, the first thing you notice is actually that my spine is very, very straight. So my tummy is there, and then all the muscles run down the back there. Yeah, my spine is actually quite straight through there. So we've got number 5 here, number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1. Now, first off, what we'll look at is the fact that these spaces where the discs are, they get progressively bigger down to here. I don't know if you can see that there. So where the arrow is pointing, this is the L4, L5 disc. That is a bit narrower than that one. This arrow down here, this is the L5, S1. That is a lot narrower. If anything, there isn't really one there. And that's because that's never, it's unlikely to have grown. Because of the transitional segment, mine's kind of a partial transitional segment, in the sense that a true transitional segment is where L5 and S1 are completely fused. Mine isn't. There's almost like a bit of disc or something in there. What we can also see, now these holes at the back here where the nerves come out, these are nice big spaces. When we get to this one, so this is L4, L5, where the disc is narrowed slightly, we can see that that space is a little bit smaller than one above. When we come down here, L5, S1, we can see that space is really, really small. Now, this does play a role in my symptoms, because I sometimes get like leg pain, stiffness, or a little bit of numbness sometimes, that actually the areas on the skin specifically correlate to these nerve roots here. So sometimes this can actually cause me some symptoms. There's likely to be a little bit of wear into the joints, so we call it facet arthritis, facet spondylitis, whatever you want to call it. Facet arthrosis, maybe sometimes people have heard, because we can see that it's quite a bit whiter through the back here than it is in here. So that just means that the bone's gone thicker. Now, the reason that I'm showing you all of this is a lot of my patients have shown me x-rays, and their spines look much nicer than mine does. Okay. So I've got disc degeneration. I've got arthritis into the facets. The spine isn't straight. I've got my pelvis is lower on one side, so it's kind of all out of alignment, really. There's wear into my hips. I actually don't really ever have any pain from the stuff on this x-ray. Now, the thing that I do sometimes get pain from, I mentioned, is I sometimes get a bit of leg pain. So that's where the nerve is being irritated in this hole, where the hole is a little bit smaller. But that doesn't happen all the time. The reason that doesn't happen all the time is, well, the reason that I do feel it, I should say, is because when my circle of function decreases, when my tolerance drops, I can then start to feel these symptoms. And the things that cause my tolerance to drop are things like pushing myself too hard, so pushing myself really far beyond my circle of function, not pushing myself hard enough, so even just not exercising, not moving enough, spending a long time sat at my desk, not getting good quality or quantity of sleep, or just really poorly managing my stress. So when I am doing one or all of those things, the size of my circle of function decreases, and normal day-to-day things start to become painful. But I know that if I start to counteract those things, so I focus on getting better sleep, I focus on managing my stress better, I focus on increasing my activity levels, and getting my activity levels right, not too much, not too little, then all of this stuff on the x-ray it ceases to be of any real importance at all. So what I want to impress upon you guys is that just because you have stuff on your x-ray, it doesn't mean it's important. A lot of people sort of go, I see so many people who go and see a doctor, and then they come back, the doctor takes an x-ray, and then they have an appointment, they look at the x-ray, and the doctor goes, oh, well, you've got back pain and you've got all of this degeneration, they must be related. But in truth, if we took x-rays of loads of people and who had back pain and loads of people who didn't have back pain, they're all going to have these changes in their spine. So if you have these changes in people who do have pain and don't have pain, you've got to ask yourself, how important actually are these findings? Because again, the stuff on these x-rays only really makes up a tiny piece of the puzzle. So yes, so like in myself, yes, there is some issue here that can sometimes cause me pain, but I know that that's only like 5% of the overall problem. If I cover 95% of the rest of the problem, then I can live with that 5% with it kind of flaring up every so often, because it's only to a really small extent. And I know all the stuff that I've got to do. I've got that skill of managing my back pain much more effectively. And the reason that we have to talk about this is because you cannot change the things on your x-ray. You need to put your attention towards the things you can change. So you can control the quality and the quantity of sleep you get. You can control your overall activity level. You can control how you manage your stress. There's so many things that we can do. If we fixate on the x-ray and think, well, you know, I've got this stuff going on, so that's why I've got back pain, that's self-defeating, because that doesn't give us a solution in any way at all. Back pain can be 100% can be managed effectively with non-invasive treatment approaches like effective stress management and activity level, improving your activity levels. You don't need to, we don't really need to be looking at all of this stuff on the x-ray, because the importance of it is very, very low. There's a study that I read a few years back, and what it actually did was it looked at a load of people who had pain, and they had wear and tear onto their x-ray, and they took that. And what they actually found was that the overall improvement that people had, only about 25% of that overall improvement was due to the treatment they had. So only 25%, okay, is due to treatment. And that seems crazy, because so many people look for all these different, like, well, what's the treatment that's going to fix my back pain? Well, even the best treatment, it seems, is only going to get you 25% improvement. What they also found is that 75% of the overall improvement came from understanding that the stuff on the x-ray isn't really that important. Okay, now let me give you an example of that. When we look at all of these things on this x-ray, like the disc degeneration, the wear into the facets, changes in the alignment of the spine, they exist in almost everyone in the world. And the chances of having them increase exponentially when you're over the age of 60. But what age group of people do you think have the least back pain? It's the over 60s. So that shows that there's almost like an inverse correlation, which is completely the opposite to what I've been told in the past and to what most of my patients have been told in the past. So we need to move away from this idea that the x-rays tell us everything that we need to know, because that's, from what the research tells us, that's just simply not true. Most of this stuff on here is actually governed by your genetics. So my x-ray looks almost exactly as my genetics intended it to. So I hope you guys found that useful. Stick your questions in the comments below. I want to try and answer those for you. I know this is a bit of a tricky one to try and get a head around, because traditionally doctors, healthcare professionals have always placed a high level of importance on x-rays. So if you do have any issues sort of getting your head around that, I want to be able to talk to you about that. I will put up another video tomorrow. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great day, and I will catch up with you next time.